this Coimbatore Declaration, we call this. This Coimbatore Declaration will be once more edited and we will send it to the central government. We had the people of the central government in this meeting. The member of the Central Water Commission was present here. We will send it to the central government. We will also send it to the state government. State government officials were here. We will send it to state government. We will also send this to the local governments, because they are the people who have to take care of the water resources of the panchayats. So we will send it to the local governments and we will request them to implement it. The press can do one help for us. If you can give publicity to this, this will reach the government much before our letters reach, and our letters are seen by the government officials. And the bureaucrats also will see it the moment the press gives it. If you can do that, it will open the eyes of the government. Which, why I am telling this is, think of the climate change which we are talking about. We have to plan to combat the climate change impact on water resources. I find to my surprise, we have not awakened to this problem so far. Unless and until we awaken to this problem, for example, because of the sea level rise, our coastal waters are going to be saline. And there will be frequent floods and droughts. We have seen the flood in Chennai. We are seeing the floods every year since 2018 in Kerala. And we are having a lot of flood in the northern part of India. The cloud burst, as it has been pointed out, in the north of India, people died. The cloud burst and mud flow, all these things are taking lives. So it is time that all government plannings are done based on considering the impact of climate change on water resources. I'll tell you, you take the case of Tamil Nadu. Major part of Tamil Nadu depends on the flows in Kaveri River. I'm talking about major part of Tamil Nadu depends on the Kaveri waters. And the new delta also gets Kaveri waters. So, what you have to think of is that if there is a reduction in southwest monsoon and change in the timing of the southwest monsoon, that is what is happening now, change in the timing of southwest monsoon, what will happen is that the reservoirs in Tamil Nadu will never fill. And there will not be sufficient flow to the Kaveri Delta, the rice bowl of Tamil Nadu. So, what I just wanted to say here is that now when I am talking about frequent floods and frequent droughts and change in the rainfall pattern, timings, there will be drought conditions in Tamil Nadu. When you want water for your crop, you may not get it. You will get water when you don't want it. So, if that situation comes, and this is a global phenomenon, I'll tell you little more. We have found out there is a phenomenon called El Nino and La Nino. And when there is an El Nino, in Tamil Nadu, northeast monsoon, you get more rainfall. In Kerala, they get less rainfall. Now, what has happened is that El Nino is not there for quite last year, year before last, and this year also we don't have that. Which means that it may have an impact on your northeast monsoon, which is the major monsoon season in Tamil Nadu. This is mainly because of the global changes in the thermal flow regime, which is going to have an impact. This is one of the impacts of climate change on Tamil Nadu waters. And now, when the temperature goes up more and more, the use of water will go more and more, and the loss of water will become more and more. How are we going to address this problem in Tamil Nadu? And we should understand, in Coimbatore, we have got just 600 millimeters of average annual rainfall. We are at least meeting our needs from the waters of Shirvani and waters which come from Parambikulam. What will happen if there is a change in the timings for the waters in these rivers which are feeding into Parambikulam and Shirvani? This is something which we'll have to keep in your mind when you are talking about it. And one of our experts here have studied the changes in the rainfall pattern in the upper reaches of Kaveri. And he says that there is a possible reduction in the rainfall in the upper reaches of Kaveri. If there is a possible reduction in the rainfall in the upper reaches of Kaveri, it is going to affect your metro dam, and it is going to affect the delta. So this is something which we will have to take up very seriously. This is with regard to Tamil Nadu.
Yes,
And coming to
asked about the 3 states which were.
and another state is the state of Kerala. From 2018, you had a flood. And 2019, we have got Manoj Samuel here from Center for Water Resources in Kerala. We had in 2019 again a flood. And this year, the whole of Cochin, the great Cochin city, was underneath water. I'm sorry about it. Okay, so every year practically they are having this flood. Earlier, people of that area had not seen any flood, but today you have got a flood. This is state number 2. They say that the studies carried out by the World Bank states that the rainfall and the climate change effect on Andhra Pradesh will be so much so that slowly the rice cultivation in Andhra Pradesh will stop. And dryland crops like groundnut will have to be all the more. And even that will not be economical because of the climate change. This is a study of the World Bank which they are talking about. Patnaik Sahab, you want to say about Odisha? The floods in Odisha?
Yes, I think with the change in rainfall pattern, we are finding that the flood intensity, which
streams which are quite unusual for that place. And 2014 was a particularly bad year. And subsequently also we had 2 or 3 such incidents, which of course have not been as severe as 2014, but nevertheless quite unusually severe. So it is actually a phenomenon that is unleashing across the length and breadth of the country, and I don't think there is any place which is going to be excluded or it's going to be exempt from these egregious consequences.
இந்த சீதோஷ்ண நிலை மாற்றங்கள் பருவமழையினுடைய காலங்கள்.
It's all, the Bangalore flood also has an implication of the climate change possibly. Now, what happens is that there should be some room for rivers to flow. What we are doing is that we are constructing buildings within the water course. So, what has happened in Kerala, if you ask me, people have started encroaching into the river course. And there is no place for water to flow. So, water has no other way but to flood. So, there has been considerable encroachment. You remember that in Cochin, Supreme Court asked them to bring down 2 buildings, tall buildings, and it was destroyed overnight. It is because they had encroached into the wetland, the Cochin backwaters. So these things people will have to be made aware, and their lives are lost because they are encroaching and then having their houses in the river course. If it is little far off, the life will not be endangered. This is something which you'll have to think of.
நமக்கு தெரிந்திருக்கிறபடி நிலத்தை ஆக்கிரமித்தல், அத்துமீறி நிலத்தில
and water, this thing, monsoon rains and all about it. Does this summit discussed about anything, the linking of rivers?
What is that?
Linking of rivers.
Interlinking of
Because
rivers.
there will be a shortage in different states of.
You know, if there is a shortage of water, let us take water as Panditji.
Yeah.
Why don't you answer that?
Well, as far have been in place, and there have been efforts to implement those schemes. However, there are differences in perceptions as far as the water availability are concerned, and also as far as the construction of various reservoirs and various canal networks required to conduct those waters are concerned. And because of that, the implementation has been going rather slow. Even then, the first interlinking scheme, that is the Ken-Betwa interlinking scheme, has already been taken up, and that will be constructed in some time.
Which one?
Ken-Betwa.
And the linking of rivers. Huh?
Yeah.
You said about the study, huh? What is the status of the study of linking of all the rivers in the country?
Well, actually, there are these studies have been already there as far as the major rivers have been concerned, and it is not necessary to link all the rivers in the country, but the major interbasin transfer routes have been already identified, and they have been studied in quite some detail. But now the stage has come when we will have to prepare the detailed project reports, which will require proper surveys, investigations, and also the estimation and clearances from the environmental angle. So those works are still to be taken up.
Yeah, but many states are objecting for this linking of rivers, either to Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and Kaveri linking of this road.
Yeah, that is the constraint that we are facing, because primarily the water being a state subject, and also the land also being within the jurisdiction of the states, the implementation of this has to come on a consensual basis. So Supreme Court had already recommended a committee to achieve this consensus. That committee, special committee, keeps on meeting regularly, and also the efforts are on to generate this consensus.
Is there any specific time bound that has been fixed for this to?
It is very difficult to fix a time, because the consensus requirements are very large. There is also requirements of international consensus, especially Nepal and Bangladesh, and for that the works are going on, but still it will take a long time.
Money is also a constraint.
Money is also a constraint.
Money is a constraint.
And this,
We
especially
have to
the
appreciate
political
that.
and social consensus is something which is very critical.
You're in the body. When you hope it may happen, long time in either 10 years. Or
I mean,
15 years,
as an individual, I cannot really give you any timeline.
approximate.
I mean, see, for an example, in China, the interbasin water transfer took almost 50 years to discuss. Similarly, in case of the Murray-Darling Basin in Australia, the consensus about the sharing of the waters and management of the waters in Murray-Darling also took something like 70 years. So these are all slow-moving problems, and societies respond rather slowly on this.
Now, do you think climate change is more dangerous, or change of governments are more dangerous?
Well, in the long run, the climate change will definitely shape our social and our political scenario as well. So we should be, as scientists, we should be basically worried about the climate change, because that is going to have a fundamental effect on how the society will behave and how the society will respond.
You know, the World Bank was saying that much, mainly involved in dryland crops, will have to slowly move to some other lucrative activities. They may not be able to stick on to agriculture, because this is a fact. This with regard to their study in Andhra Pradesh. Now you want to hear something about the water management in the United States? Dr. V.P. Singh from, you want to hear something about the water management in the United States in the vis-a-vis that of India?
You can ask any questions. And I can
Yeah. You have any question on that?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Good, good. Purpose of holding this water summit. You know that in different parts of the, he will translate it into Tamil later. In many parts of the arid and semi-arid regions of the country, there are places which are subjected to water stress and water scarcity. When there is a water stress and water scarcity, people are finding it difficult to find drinking water sources and water for agriculture. In addition to that, in certain stretches of the country, like the eastern part of India, you have got arsenic pollution. And certain parts of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, we have got fluoride contamination. More than that, in certain states like Kerala, you have got bacterial contamination of groundwater sources. And also some of the groundwater sources are subject to iron contamination. These problems, along with there is not sufficient water for the ecological systems. What I mean by the ecological systems are the wetlands, aquatic ecosystems like wetlands. There is not sufficient water supply, or even if there is water, there is a degradation. Added to all this, you have got a climate change. Climate change is bringing more floods, more frequent floods, more frequent droughts in different parts of the country. Not only that, there is a snow melt and deglaciation from the Himalayas, and there is a change in the availability of water in the Himalayan rivers. Plus, there is a sea level rise, which in due course will create problem not only to the water resources in the coastal belt, surface water resources in the coastal belt, but also to the groundwater sources in the area. And not only that, some of our wetlands are having a threat, like Point Kalima in Tamil Nadu will have a threat. So considering all these aspects, we thought that there is a need to open the eyes of the governments, the people, on the problems faced in the water resources sector, in the water sector. It is in that context Karunya thought of conducting a water summit on Water Summit 2022. Now, Karunya already has got a water institute which has been functioning from 2008, which has got a laboratory with great infrastructure. And also, today we have inaugurated a water museum within Karunya to create an awareness among the public on the importance of water, water problems, and the solutions to the water problems. So, this has been inaugurated today by our Honorable Chancellor. We thought of having this conference when we are celebrating the 60th birthday of our Chancellor, because Karunya has identified water as its distinctiveness, and the recent NAC visits has given full mark for Karunya for its water as a distinctive aspect of Karunya. All these led us to have a meeting, a water summit in Coimbatore to address the water problems of the country. You want to say something in Tamil? And then I will go to the, I will read out the.
நீர் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட இந்த மாநாட்டினுடைய அவசியத்தை நான் எடுத்துரைத்தேன். நம் நாட்டில் உள்ள தண்ணீர் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட பற்றாக்குறைகள், மேலாண்மைகள் மற்றும் அதில் உள்ள சிக்கல்களை குறித்து சில விவாதங்களை நடத்தி அந்த விவாதங்களின் அடிப்படையில் சில தீர்வுகளை கொடுக்க வேண்டும் என்று நாட்டில் உள்ள முன்னணி ப்ரொஃபசர்ஸ், முன்னணி பேராசிரியர்கள், முன்னணி இன்ஸ்டிடியூட்டுடைய தலைவர்கள் அவர்களை அழைத்து இந்த நாளிலே இந்த மாநாடு நடத்தும்படி நாங்கள் தீர்மானித்தோம். நாட்டில் உள்ள வறண்ட மற்றும் லேசாக வறண்ட பகுதியில் உள்ள தண்ணீர் பிரச்சனைகளை குறித்து நாங்கள் விவாதிக்கும்படி இந்த மாநாடை நாங்கள் கூட்டியிருந்தோம். அடுத்ததாக நம் நாட்டிலே ஆர்சனைட் கலந்த தண்ணீர் இருக்கிறது. அதை எப்படி நம் சுகாதாரத்துக்கு ஏற்ற மாதிரி மாற்றுவது என்பதை குறித்து தீர்மானிக்கும்படி விவாதிக்கும்படி கூடியிருக்கிறோம். அதே போல சில இடங்களிலே புளூரைட் கலந்த நீர் இயற்கையாகவே கிடைக்கிறது. அந்த புளூரைட் கலந்த நீரை எப்படி சுத்தப்படுத்தி மனிதர்களுக்கு பிரயோஜனமாக மாற்றுவது, இதை பற்றி விவாதிக்க வேண்டும். மற்றும் அடுத்ததாக கேரளா போன்ற பகுதிகளில் பாக்டீரியா கலந்த நிலத்தடி நீர் காணப்படுகிறது. அந்த நீரை எப்படி சுகாதார முறையில பயன்படுத்தி மக்களுக்கு பிரயோஜனமாக மாற்றுவது, இப்படி தண்ணீர் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட மேலாண்மை, தண்ணீர் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட பற்றாக்குறை, தண்ணீர் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட தரவுகள் ஆகியவற்றின் அடிப்படையில நிலத்தடி நீர் மேலாண்மைக்காகவும் தண்ணீர் மேலாண்மைக்காகவும் ஒரு கருத்தரங்கை வைத்து சான்றோர்கள் மூலமாக அதை நம் நாட்டுக்கு தெரியப்படுத்த வேண்டும், தலைவர்களுக்கு தெரியப்படுத்த வேண்டும், அதன் மூலமான தீர்வுகளை தெரியப்படுத்த வேண்டும் என்ற எண்ணத்திலே காருண்யாவுடைய சான்சலர் டாக்டர் பால் தினருடைய 60வது பிறந்த நாளிலே இப்படிப்பட்ட ஒரு கருத்தரங்கை வைத்து சான்றோர்களின் கருத்துக்களை சொல்லி இந்த தீர்மானத்தை நாம் அரசாங்கத்தில் கொண்டு சேர்க்க வேண்டும் என்ற எண்ணத்திலே இந்த கருத்தரங்கானது ஒழுங்கு செய்யப்பட்டுள்ளது.
I am reading out the decisions of the discussions of this summit. You have got it with you. You need not read it out. So you want to ask some questions to the
integrated data management system now?
Yeah.
Centralized or centralized?
What is the question?
Now any integrated management system is there or not?
Is there any data management system right now available? Available or no data management?
No, it is not available. We don't have integrated water resources management. As it has been enunciated at the Dublin conference in 1992, they said that what is integrated water resources management? It calls for many things, many changes in our system. For example, what are our water issues? We don't have a proper governance in the water sector. And there is no integration of departments which are dealing with water in this country. And we don't have a proper monitoring and data collection system in this country. And only if you have got all these, you may be able to have an appropriate distribution and utilization of water, which doesn't take place. I'm not saying that it doesn't take place anywhere, but it doesn't, by and large, doesn't take place in the country. Unless and until we understand the importance of water and go for that, there is no shortcut for us to have sufficient quantum of water for our people to drink. You want to say?
மேம்படுத்தப்பட்ட ஒருங்கிணைந்த நீர் மேலாண்மை மற்றும் அதற்குரிய தரவுகள் சரியான விதத்திலே நாட்டிலே இப்போது காணப்படவில்லை. ஆகவே அப்படிப்பட்ட தரவுகளின் அடிப்படையில ஒரு சிஸ்டத்தை, ஒரு ஒழுங்கை கொண்டு வரும் பொழுது நம் நாட்டில் உள்ள தண்ணீர் பிரச்சனைகளுக்கான தீர்வுகளை கொண்டு வர முடியும் என்ற எண்ணத்திலே அதை பற்றின விவாதங்கள் இந்த நாளிலே நடைபெற்றது. அப்படிப்பட்ட சிஸ்டம் வந்து டூப்ளின் கான்ஃபரன்ஸ் என்ற அந்த கான்ஃபரன்ஸின் அடிப்படையில சில விவாதங்கள் நடைபெற்று அந்த கான்ஃபரன்ஸின் அடிப்படையில இன்றைக்கு அதற்கான முன்னேற்பாடுகள் எடுக்கப்பட்டுள்ளன.
The main reason for this is, you know that water is fresh water is finite. For example, the rainfall in Tamil Nadu, average annual rainfall in Tamil Nadu is limited. Every year it is almost the same. For Coimbatore, you have got 600 millimeters of average annual rainfall. It is constant, more or less. Our water use has gone up considerably, water utilization. So there is no balance between the available water and water being utilized. This imbalance is the major reason for the water problems which we find in the semi-arid region of Coimbatore, Chennai, etc.
இப்படிப்பட்ட இந்த வறண்ட சூழ்நிலைகளாக காணப்படுகிற